YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, back in Total War Rome 2. And I wanted to have a little discussion about ambush battles, and I have a replay I want to show you. And then let's go into a custom battle screen and kind of talk a little bit about it. So, Air, what the heck do you care about ambush battles? I mean, no one plays them anyway. Well, they're kind of a different feature that's never really been explored in the game, and maybe they're not any fun. But I see them as having maybe fun potential. I want to show you this ambush battle. It's my, and I set it to large armies just to maybe make things more interesting. That way, the attacking player would have to worry about more troops. So, anyway, I set it to large armies. I picked Athens, which is not a particularly powerful faction. My opponent picked Rome, which I wasn't exactly happy about, but I didn't call out any rules, so he's free to do so. It's a nighttime ambush. And here's my guys marching through here. Torch in hand, actually. Torch in hand. And let's just watch what happens. We're going to go into slow motion for a second. So look, not only are the Romans just amazingly powerful, my opponent has deployed these flaming balls of doom here and set them down the hill, and they are rolling straight towards my men. And just to give you a little real-time idea, I'm going to hit play. This is how much time I had to react. I just got control of my troops, and I'm giving my hoplites orders because there's Romans on the hill. And by the time I even start giving orders, the flaming balls are here, and they just start wrecking my Tarentine cav. Now, fortunately, they missed a lot of my heavy infantry, including my general. But still, that was a fairly deadly situation. Completely wrecked a unit of Tarentine cav and another. My opponent wisely charges his cavalry in immediately and pins my own so that it can't escape and gain any maneuverability. And then he immediately suicide charges a legionary cav into all my skirmishers. Again, very smart move on his part. You can see why this would be so challenging for the person being ambushed. Now, my opponent, now I have like 5 picked hoplites, a whole bunch of thorax hoplites, so I have a very large amount of infantry power. My opponent picked Rome and has huge funds, so of course he has far more infantry power and is coming from advantageous position, which is the very nature of an ambush battle. So I'm being ambushed by Avocati cohort, armored legionaries, and all kinds of other troops. So anyway, you're going to watch my men be summarily slaughtered, and I mean slaughtered. And I didn't expect much different taking Athens versus Rome. This is supposed to be just more fun than anything else. So let's actually watch this from the point of view of some of my troops here in a second. This will be a good one. Having to fight from such disadvantageous positions against very superior troops. Anyway, I think the idea of ambush battles is fun, and I'd like to see people play it more, just to give it a chance and kind of figure out more about it. But again, it's going to be one of those things that's you're going to have to do some thinking, and you're going to have to set up scenarios in order to make it winnable for both opponents, because, let's be honest, I mean, unless my opponent pretty much just didn't try, Rome versus Athens, whenever Rome has access to these units that they do, in an ambush battle, there's really not a whole lot of prayer for the person playing as Athens. And some of you might be like, Air, you could have done better. Absolutely, I could have done better, but honestly, you get like a couple of seconds to react to your opponent, and you don't get to deploy. So your opponent's going to get easy access to your cav and your skirmishers, and they can see where you're starting from, as opposed to you can't see them at all until they bring their units out of hiding. Now, some of my units will put up a decent fight, these picked hoplites, but they're no match for units like Avocati cohort, especially not in this uphill position that they're in. And some of my units will actually do quite well. These Principes will straight up lose to my picked hoplites, but it's still not a bad trade for the Roman player. And I just keep trying to keep from being... I don't want his troops to get in completely behind me, but it's only a matter of time before they do, because I'm losing my ability to support my flank. So my opponent's eventually going to break in, and I wasn't able. My plan originally was to try and escape quickly with my Tarentine cav and just start drawing his units out, and then hopefully use my Hippeus Lancers to intercept a couple of his charges. But he was able to get in immediately without me having much foresight into what he was doing. So it was a good thought, but it just didn't work. I had some thorax swords that got caught back here and absolutely ripped to pieces by armored legionaries and Avocati cohort. And anyway, my army's just going to get, again, like I said, just completely and summarily entirely destroyed here, which is, I think, the idea of an ambush battle, right? You're supposed to completely annihilate your opponent. And you're supposed to catch them in a very unfair situation, which has definitely been the case here. So the Roman units are so much better than the Athenian units that it's not even a comparison. And he wouldn't have... And so this is the thing that I thought was kind of funny. Now, of course, again, I didn't call out any rules, and I'm not saying it like it's a mean thing, but my opponent had absolutely no reason to bring Avocati cohort and armored legionaries. against Athens in an ambush battle, you're not going to need those units. You could easily destroy Athens with much less. And again, I'm not saying it to be mean to my opponent, like, way to go. I didn't call out any rules. It's just that, you know, I always think other people think like me, which isn't true. But, you know, we all do that a little bit, right? We sometimes wonder why people don't think like us. And I wouldn't have brought those units in this type of battle. But see, other people don't think like me, and they don't play the game like me, and so when I don't specifically call it out, I shouldn't be surprised whenever it happens. Because if you're thinking about it, if you're just playing it for the sole purpose of gaining a victory, well, absolutely you would bring Evocati Cohort and Armored Legionaries, because they're the units that are going to gain you that victory almost certainly in this scenario. So again, you're just going to watch my guys just get wrapped up on a fast forward. I mean, it's pretty obvious what's going to happen at this point. Actually, we're not getting very good frame rates at fast forward, so I won't. There's only a minute left. I'll just kind of see some of the different units. My general duking it out with these Principes, and they are winning. And then my troops are going to move around here and get in behind the Roman troops. But of course, my opponent's going to immediately try and countercharge me with Cav. I'm not very worried about Legionary Cav. They're not going to cause any real damage. They're going to just get chased off. And then I'll go ahead and finish the rear charge. But, I mean, these Principes actually did a really good job, all things considered, against a unit as expensive and as powerful as a Pict Hoplite. They did have nice positioning on the hill. So again, even my Pict Hoplites end up being worthless just because there's little they can do to stop these Roman units. Yeah, his downhill charges really won't even do that much from the Legionary Cav, other than some morale damage. They're just not strong enough to have a huge impact on my men. They'll kill some of them. Yeah, look, my general's still routed even after having surrounded the Principes. And remember, Principes are one of the cheapest, or the cheapest heavy infantry unit, I think, that the Romans have. I'm not counting Hastati as a heavy infantry, and they may not be counted as one anyway, but even the Principe on that uphill advantage easily knocks out the Pict Hoplites, which that's the reason why I was saying the Evocati Cohort and the Armored Legionaries were completely unnecessary. But again, at that funds level, you know, for my opponent, he's like, why not? So, Air, what did you want to talk about here, other than seeing you get absolutely cremated by that Roman army? Well, that was kind of the purpose. I don't mind playing as the person being attacked in these battles because I'm trying to learn more about them. And I'm trying to create like a rule set for ambush battles that would make it fun. Because if we go in here and you look, the attacker gets the... Let's see here. So it used to be different, I think. But the attacker gets the exact same amount of funds as the defender, which is kind of ludicrous. It's very much, you get such a huge positional advantage, and you get the deployables and all that other stuff, and be like, well, it's an ambush battle. That was the case. You'd always ambush. I get all that. I'm not trying to compare it to real life. It doesn't have to be exactly like real life. I'm trying to think of a way to make this a fun scenario to play in multiplayer. So, like, for instance, I think it would be cool if the attackers get a ton of money, but the defenders get the land and the deployables, and it's their duty to try and use that to its maximum. You know, that would be a very interesting scenario. So, you know, it's like, I think there used to be like a morale penalty associated with the defenders. I don't necessarily think that's a good idea, because then it makes it really easy to rout them, because that morale penalty piled up with all the outflanking and everything else you're going to be doing, it's going to be too easy. So I would think the first rule that I could notice from this is you'd probably want to ban certain factions from being the attackers. And Rome would need to be banned from being an attacker because they're just too good. Way too good. To be the attackers, unless you put some limitations on them. You would have to put some limitations on them in order to make it, because, I mean, they are just wildly better. Because this is the kind of fight where an infantry fight is practically guaranteed. How is a defender, or an attacker, how's a defender going to skirmish the Romans to death? Or uphill charge shot cav the Romans to death? You're not. You're just not. And you're not going to have any way to escape and get any room to maneuver. So that's the kind of fight that favors Rome heavily, which naturally means that they would be very good as the attackers, which means you're probably going to have to ban them if you want to have any sort of competitive fun to this. Or, again, maybe you could cut the money back for factions like Rome or something like that. It would take some thought. I'm just throwing this out here. So let's say maybe that you ban certain factions from being the attackers, like the ones who are really, really, really good with heavy infantry, like Rome. Rome is probably the biggest one I can think of right now. Possibly the Boii, but even their infantry is much more breakable than the Romans. So the Romans might be the only one I can think of at the moment that you would just straight up need to ban from being the attacker. And then, you know, if you wanted to, you could start tinkering with rules. So say, like, for instance, that the attacker when they get finished needs to have 2,000 funds left. You know, that's the rule. 2,000 or more funds left in order to be the attacker. And so if you look at the attacker should get equipment based on how many units. Should be, at least. How come I don't get deployables? Oh, you probably just get to use the deployables in battle. My bad. So, yeah, in any case, it would just be fun to kind of set something like that up. Or to maybe set up certain scenarios where if, like, say, for instance, you take a comparatively somewhat weak faction. So, like, say, for instance, you take the... let's think of some factions that aren't as powerful. So, like, if you did, like, a Massilia versus Rome, where Rome is defending, and they can use the really good infantry, and Massilia has to find a way to try and use that terrain advantage and other stuff to actually win the fight. You know, that might be kind of a fun scenario. You know, it might be interesting to play an ambush battle where you have the Romans marching in a column, and maybe they get ambushed by one of the steppe factions, like the Massagetei or something. So, I mean, that might make an interesting battle. So now the Massagetei have all these downhill charges they could use against the Romans, and the Romans would have to try and draw up a defensive line and try and protect their men until they can get into a defensive scenario again. Just things that might be interesting. I don't know if it's interesting, and I don't know if it'll play out any better than what did right there. That's why I'm testing this. I'm just trying to find something that works. If you have some ideas, this video is really meant to drum up ideas. Throw some ideas in the comments for me, and I'll try and test them. Or better yet, if you all watch, so if you're wanting to play with me online, and you're wanting to be a part of these videos I make, wow, there's hardly any battles up tonight, so nothing going on in Rome 2 tonight, apparently. Normally there's quite a few more than this. But if you're wanting to get on here and actually play some battles with me, a lot of times when I host battles that I want you all to join, I'm just going to name it HeirofCarthage, like you can see here. So if you see a game up that's HeirofCarthage and the host is Patchy or Scratchy or whatever I've named my character for the day, join in, and that's me. And it means just come in and have fun. Anybody's welcome. Doesn't matter if you're a great player, if you're a brand new player, doesn't matter. Just join. And this is where I'll be testing out stuff like this, trying to record videos that are not as common for you. I'll still do quick battles. I like going into quick battle and just kind of seeing what I run into. But this will give you a chance if you want to just come join in. So if you see that battle, I usually play evenings Central Time. I know a lot of people in Europe, it's not really going to fit your schedule, but evenings on Central Time. So that'll be anywhere from probably 6:30 to 8:30 on weekdays. If I'm on a weekday, I'm not saying I will be every day, but if I am, that's when I'll be on. Saturdays, I'm probably going to be on, you know, it could be any time of the day. Just kind of depends on when I get to record or when I get to film. Sunday, if I'm on, it's most likely going to be early evening, somewhere in 4:30 to 6:37 range. If I'm on Sunday, sometimes I'll get on Sunday morning on like the 9 to 11:30 range. So just look for the game. I'm going to name it HeirofCarthage. If you see it, feel free to join in. Come have some fun. I appreciate my opponent for joining in and playing this with me, and hopefully you all can give me some good suggestions, and I can try and bring you some good videos. HeirofCarthage signing off for now.